Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melisa Caprio.
Hello and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. I hope you guys are all doing well. How is everybody? Happy September. Each month I like to look and see what the month represents, and I usually don't share it on the radio, but I just happen to, I'll be sharing today's. So September is considered a power month in numerology as it holds the vibration of the number 9, hence the 9th month, and 9 represents transitions and endings. It's the last stage before a new cycle begins. It's also a power number of creation, and for many parts of the of this country, the United States, you guys are going to start feeling the nice shift in weather. Unfortunately, where I am, September is not my favorite month. August and September, it's the height of hurricane season, and it's the hottest here. We don't really get to feel that here. So I'm jealous of you guys who are already starting to feel the changes in the weather. Man, I miss that. Anyway, so but it's got good energies. It's about creation. So let's create this month. I have a great guest today, author of Have Hope, 365 Encouraging Poems, Prayers, and Meditations for Daily Inspiration, Maggie Oman Shannon, and Maggie's going to join me in just a few minutes. A few things that I want to share. A couple weeks ago, I mentioned on the show my Facebook got hacked. So if those of you who are on Facebook could do me a big favor, if you go to my personal Facebook page, Melisa Caprio, it's public. I can't get to any of my pages because they all go through your one sign-in, my postcards page or anything, or my group. So if you go to Melisa Caprio, Melisa 1S, it's public. You click the 3 dots and report profile. Go to I want to help and click hacked and then click done. Then you've just reported my page is being hacked. You're helping me report it to Facebook so I can get it back. Facebook, who also owns Instagram, have no customer service. So all I can do is ask for you guys' help. So hopefully that will be enough. Enough people will do it so they'll flag my account and they'll fix the problem so I can get it back. Those of you who listen to me on a regular basis know each week I share a Magic Monday message. It's an image of a manifesting postcard that I photograph with an affirmation that I like to focus on for that week so that I tap into the energy of the affirmation. And I keep repeating it for the week to myself to increase its power and for it to become a new belief that I can incorporate into my life. And I post them on Mondays. And this week's affirmation is, life is pure adventure. Is that how you would describe your life right now? I don't know. Yes, I think mine is still pure adventure, even though I'm home a lot more than I've ever been. I bet many of you are feeling restless because of the past year and a half. But if you have that adventurous spirit, this is how you know you're a curious person. The unknown doesn't scare you. It excites you. And you want to learn about all the mysteries of the world. Maybe you have that wanderlust spirit. I have it, and I'm hoping that in 2022, I can go and do some traveling and exploring. So if you have that wanderlust spirit and you are isolating still at home for safety, I don't know, maybe you can do some traveling in your own little area that you live in. If you get monotony, bored so easily, you'll have that life is an adventure spirit. You're not fond of just sitting around all day or working those 9-to-5 jobs. You need the freedom. Many people I know who have that can't sit still, not for a second. They're itching to move around. So maybe you have that. You're a dreamer and you're a doer. You have big plans that you see in your mind's eye that you want to manifest in your life, and you're always plotting your next move. You're always trying to raise your frequency so you can manifest because you live in that daydream. I have that. I do that a lot. You're a quick learner. I don't know. Are you a quick learner? I'm a quick learner. I love to read, so I always have at least 3 books going a week. And I love having authors on. That's why I have authors on my show. So I start their book that week that I have them as my guest, and so that I can really dive in. So I always have those going along with my fiction books and my nonfiction. So I don't know. Even though we are stuck still and we're still being super careful, you can still have a pure adventure in your life. You just have to kind of create it yourself right now. You may be a little limited on what you can do, but it's possible. So, what are you waiting for? Go out and live your life to the fullest. If you want to see my Magic Money Message postcards and their affirmations, you can go to my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com. I share them each week, or you can go to any of my social media platforms. I still share them on Facebook because I'm using my mother's account to post them. But yeah, you can still see them on there. And if you're interested in doing inner work exercises and reading people's incredible journeys of transformation, inspiration, and manifesting, please check out my book, Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams, which you can find in your favorite online bookstores. And you can find me if you just Google Postcards to the Universe, anywhere. I'm all over the place, and now on YouTube. So yeah, and if you guys want to make a manifesting postcard, email me right from my website. Let me know, and I will help you create one. Okay, so next week I have Polly Campbell. She's an established author, writer, podcaster, speaker, and media personality who attracts a broad audience of mothers, boomers, writers, and people who aspire to live healthier, more engaged lives. And in her book, which we're going to be talking about next week, You Recharged: How to Beat Fatigue Mostly, Amp Up Your Energy Usually, and Enjoy Life Again Always. She's going to help us discover the small but meaningful ways we can feel happier, healthier, and more alive no matter what's going on. Okay, so to get to my guest today, I'm super excited that she is on. Reverend Maggie Oman Shannon is an ordained Unity minister, workshop and retreat facilitator, artist, and author of 9 books, including Have Hope, 365 encouraging poems, prayers, and meditations for daily inspiration. Some of her other books include Prayers for Healing, The Way We Pray, Prayer Practices from Around the World, Crafting Gratitude, Creating and Celebrating Our Blessings with Hands and Heart, and Crafting Love, Sharing Our Hearts Through the Work of Our Hands. She is the senior minister of Unity Spiritual Center of San Francisco and has served as a spiritual leader since 2010. And you can find out more about her if you go to her website, Maggie, Maggie Oman, Oman, Shannon, SHANNON.com. Welcome, Maggie. Thanks for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Melissa.
I'm so excited. I love talking to authors. Okay, so all right, I read a little about you, so why don't you share about your background and, about you being an author and how this all came about?
Well, that's actually a really interesting manifestation story. If
good.
your listeners are interested in that, I've always wanted to be a writer, and I actually have a little essay I wrote when I was 12 years old that said, I want to be a writer. And so it was pretty early on in my childhood that was a dream. And I was acknowledged for writing ability in high school, and I chose a college that I thought would be a good college for learning how to write. I became a journalist after college with my English Lit major degree, and then I was working. I had moved to San Francisco. This was in my mid-30s, and I was the director of marketing for the Institute of Noetic Sciences. They were doing a conference on the role of spirit in healing. And so since I was going to market the conference, I thought, well, wouldn't it be neat to do a little pamphlet with prayers from different faiths on aspects of healing? And I put a little notice in our member newsletter, and the executive editor of Canary Press contacted me and said, I want you to do a book. So it was like, just like that. I stepped into my very first book contract, and
wow, that never happens that way. So that is a real manifesting story. So you set out that desire as a 12-year-old, you see, and it came back to you. Yeah, that's awesome.
And and I feel very fortunate. I feel very blessed to have the opportunity to write about things that I love, which have been primarily in the realm of spirituality, spiritual practices, interfaith approaches to spiritual exercises and prayer. And then my biggest passion, perhaps, is the role of creativity, creativity as a spiritual practice. And so before Have Hope, my last 3 books had been on that, about how to use your own creativity as a spiritual practice.
I love that. I know I saw your Crafting Love and your Crafting Gratitude, and I said I have to read those books next, because I guess that's what I do without knowing that I'm doing it, because I'm a creative person. I'm a photographer, and I using your creativity as a powerful way for manifesting. And to me, doing my creativity is my spiritual practice. Absolutely. So I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing.
I didn't either, and then when I realized it, was like, that is so cool, and I wanted to tell other people they're probably doing it too. So
right. So I really have to check those 2 out too, because I talk a lot about gratitude in as far as how powerful gratitude is in manifesting. So those books, just from the title alone, are totally resonating with me. So those I'll have to read. So your first book, what was the title of your first book? Prayers for Healing?
Prayers for Healing, that's right.
Oh, and what year did that come out?
That came out in 1997. And that was a totally blessed project from start to finish. The Dalai Lama wrote the introduction.
Wow.
People like Larry Dossey, Carolyn Mace, Deepak Chopra, Angelos Arian, Marion Woodman, all these incredible big names contributed to it. And it just really was totally blessed, and it's still in print. And to date, it's been my most successful book. So there was something about it. It was just meant to be out in the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it was divinely guided.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how did is it because you were in your ministry work that you were in touch with people like Deepak and Marianne and Carolyn Mace and them? I mean, how did you reach out to people like that to contribute to the book?
Yeah, that was actually before I became a minister. I was director of marketing for the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and they still exist. It's kind of a think tank that looks at where spirit and science might intersect. And so it was to promote a conference they were holding, and that I got the idea, but I didn't think of it in terms of a book. That was something that one of our members, Mary Jane Ryan, who herself is actually an author, she just said, let's do a book. And it was that simple. I mean, my dream came true with a phone call. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. It really is. Because I know so many people who do nothing but pitch and pitch and pitch to publishers, and I have a lot of author friends, and try to get either an agent or a publisher. There's rejection after rejection. So the fact that he just said, let's do a book, and you're like, oh, I already got a publishing contract. That's great. Yeah, that's great. That is amazing. Well, I'm so glad it's still in print, and you continued on. And so you write. Is your writing practice every day? Do you sit down and say, I'm an author, so every day I'm going to sit and write?
I don't, and I really look forward to, at some point in my life, having the opportunity to do that. But I am a congregational minister. I serve a congregation in San Francisco, and so my writing does come into play, obviously, with, writing a talk for that Sunday, or different, communications that I do. But no, I really look forward to living the writer's life, whenever I retire. That seems like a really nice way to be able to spend time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I know. It does sound like that. But I usually, because I'm more of the visual, so photography is always something I'm always doing, especially with the postcards and everything. But the writing comes to me was like a later thing that I discovered. So I don't usually write every day unless I'm working on a book or I'm working on something. That's when I sit down and write. As like right now during this pandemic, I'm 85% done with my second book and 50% done with my book proposal. Oh, those book proposals, right?
Yeah,
The book proposals. So it's given me the time to do that. So I've been writing a lot more, and I really want to talk about your latest book, which is Have Hope. And that one came out, the 365 encouraging poems, prayers, and meditations for daily inspiration. You wrote this during the pandemic or right before?
I know. I did it during the pandemic, but there's an interesting story to this, which I'll tell quickly because I know you've got to go to break pretty soon. Mm-hmm. But this is a book idea that I had back in 1998. For 20 years, I tried to get this book published, and people weren't interested in the idea. So isn't that interesting that even though I walked into my first book contract, this particular book took 20 years to get born. And I think it is because of the pandemic. It's like the time was just right. People wanted to read about hope.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think, were you home a lot more during it? That gave you the opportunity to put it together?
It did. That's right. Yeah. I was home.
Yeah. Well, as we all were. Well, okay. So because it's really interesting how it's laid out. So I want to talk about that when we come back. So let's take our break now, and you guys stay tuned, and I will be back in just 2 minutes with Maggie Oman Shannon.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
The rainbow is God's promise of hope for you and me. And though the clouds hang heavy and the sun we cannot see, we know above the dark clouds that fill the stormy sky, hope's rainbow will come shining through when the clouds have drifted by. Teresa Caprio is the president and founder of Rainbow Guardian Inc., a nonprofit 501c3 serving the intellectually challenged/developmentally disabled, including autism. Teresa started the foundation in 1995 so she could help make a better life for her intellectually challenged daughter. Her dream is that the Rainbow Guardian will provide the necessary tools and education to help the public understand the special needs population, because it's often discarded in mainstream society. To find out more or make a donation in support, please go to www.rainbowguardian.org. Rainbow Guardian's special mission is to see these unique people live a happy, full life and have a future of liberty and equality.
Welcome back. If you're just joining me, I have author Maggie Oman Shannon on with her book, Have Hope, 365 Encouraging Poems, Prayers, and Meditations for Daily Inspiration. So, Maggie, your book, I noticed it's laid out really interesting the way that you do that. So, it was different than what I expected when I read the title, which I really kind of liked that about it, the way you had it, the way you did it. So I'm going to let you share with everybody how the 365 days work and what you did.
Awesome. Well, I used the format that I used for my very first book, Prayers for Healing, which was also set up with a reading for each day, although I started it on the winter solstice. Prayers for Healing, Have Hope starts with the calendar year. But it was important to me to... does it actually? Not that I said that. I want to make sure that's true. I think
it does. It starts January 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it right here in front of me.
All of a sudden I question myself.
Yeah. Well, you have 9 books under your belt, so you may get a little confused. Right.
But I thought it would be really interesting to see if I could find a hopeful event for every day of the year. And I went through, all kinds of different references and resources to see if I could do that. And there were days, I have to say, when it was a bit of a stretch, but I was able to find a hopeful event for every single day of the year. And then it became kind of an interesting intellectual challenge to find an entry that would relate to the event in some way. So then, I was looking for those. And then my additional challenge for myself was to find a quotation that actually used the word hope. And that was important to me because I felt like, there are lots of hope anthologies, but maybe if they're not specifically, maybe it's just like an upbeat quotation, but it doesn't necessarily have a lot to say about what hope is. So it was important to me to only include quotations that actually use the word hope in them. So it was like sort of assembling this giant puzzle piece, but I felt really, really good about it. I feel very proud of it because I know that it helped me. It really helped me as we were all going through this tough time, and that was really my hope, putting it together, that other people would feel the same way too, and that no matter what day they looked at, they would find something hopeful, or would just think about new possibilities for hopeful events in the world.
Yeah, I know. It was really interesting. I was like, that's what makes it so interesting. So many things that I learned, and I thought it was really interesting that you shared what happened on January 6, 2021, the storming of the Capitol, which is a huge and heartbreaking event that happened. But you write, yet despite this, the U.S. Congress reconvenes 5 hours later and certifies the election of President-elect Joe Biden. Yeah. And I was like, wow, she included that. But I loved the quote that you chose under that. So I'll just read it. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. I know I'm not saying that right. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair by Winston Churchill. And I was like, you couldn't have picked a better quote for that event on that day. It gave me goosebumps when I read it.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, that was, and I actually want to give a friend of mine credit for that. Her name is Dana Schmidt, and she's a poet, and she had used that quotation on her Facebook page, and I thought, wow, that's got to go in the book. That's so perfect. But it was interesting because I did feel that have hope, kind of to my surprise, did take a political tone. And I talk about that in the introduction. And it's because as I was researching all these different events in history, it was so clear to me that what gives people hope is the hope that they will be able to live their fullest life, and that needs to be for all people, and for all sexes, and for all genders, and for all faiths, and for all, it needs to be for every single human being. And so I quoted this wonderful, I think it was Obama, who talked about, a society that's not equal is going to, that's what he said. Barack Obama said the absence of hope can rot a society from within. And so it became very clear to me that that hope is political in the sense of all people need to feel hope. Hope can't just be for some people.
Right. It can't just be for the entitled people. Or the privileged people, right? Exactly. It's got to be for all the people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, what was really interesting is like you just look up. I mean, you could start from January 1st, or you could start from the day that you're on, or you could just open the book and pick a date, and I and there's facts of stuff that like we never even think about, like you. I was looking at January 10th, for example, and it said in 1967, the Public Broadcasting System, PBS, a national educational television organization, begins as a 70-station network. And I don't know about you, but I love PBS. I think that was such a benefit to society, and it's like it was so wonderful to kind of have that knowledge. And then you included a Francis Bacon post with that about passion and studying of the mind, and and all that, and entertaining hope and joy and delights. And I was like, this is so perfect. So the reason I'm saying it is for those of you who are listening can kind of grasp the idea of what how your book is laid out. And that's what I really liked about it. And it's short. Every section is short. You can just read a couple of things a day, and you learn something, which is really interesting, and it does its purpose. It gives you hope.
That's so good to hear. Well, thank you so much, Melisa, for making those comments, because you absolutely got exactly what I was hoping to do, and that was to give people kind of a breadth of hopeful events in time that we now take for granted. Like we take PBS for granted, or we take, the smallpox vaccine for granted, or, all these different things that have occurred throughout history. But at the time, they just revolutionized our culture, our society, and that's what we need to keep our focus on. I think when we start to feel hopeless, is that throughout time there have always been these wonderful advancements in science and education and technology and sport, in human achievement, and in culture, and that will continue as long as human beings are alive.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Are there any particular dates and events that were your favorite, that stand out to you when you were doing the research for the book?
That's a great question. Because I'm a Virgo, it was important to me.
Oh, it's your birthday. It's your birthday time. When's your birthday?
Right. Thank you. I was very interested to hear what you had to say about September. But I was an editor, too. Before I was an author, I made my living as an editor. And so it was important to me to have the book balanced, so to include something from pretty much every realm that I could imagine. And so I also felt like I was learning things as I was putting it together. I think favorites, Nelson Mandela, I have a number of quotes by him. Of course, Martin Luther King is always incredibly inspiring, and Barack Obama. But I found I found a lot of really wonderful quotes that that inspired me. I mean, like I was just kind of flipping through as I was talking, and like Anne Frank, my God, what an amazing voice she was, and you know,
What's your birthday? Fine. I have your book in front of me. I want to look it up. I can look it up as we're here on the air. What's your actual birthday?
Sure, it's September 17th.
Ah, okay, 17th. So in 1980, the Solidarity Labor Union forms in Poland. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. And you're finding things that are around the world too, not just in the United States.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, which is so interesting. I know you touched on your researching for it, but like, what did you just like sit down in front of your computer and Google what happened on, September 17th, for example, your birthday? Like, what happened on September 17th in the world and whatever, and you would just pick one thing, or like, how did you even go about doing that?
Yeah, it was a pretty intricate process, and it was fun because it did feel like an intellectual challenge. So sometimes the date drove it, so obviously I had sort of like a grid of different selections. Sometimes I could kind of place them, but so sometimes I would either try to find a quotation that would match an event, or vice versa. If I had this really great quotation that I wanted to use, then I would try to figure out, okay, well, what can I peg that to in terms of, history, advancements, hopeful events in history. And so it really was fun to put together, I have to say. I mean, certainly it had its challenges sometimes, but I enjoyed that. I felt like I was learning so much too, because something might not work quite right, but I would still have learned about that event. And what I write about in the introduction is I was so appreciative of my liberal arts education, because, a lot of times liberal arts educations get a bad rap. I just sent my daughter off to college. She's going to get her degree in business. So my little liberal arts heart is kind of sad about that. But it served me so well in the creation of this book, because I knew what to research. I had enough working knowledge of history, of world history, or literature, or the arts, that I kind of knew what rabbit hole to go down to try to find something that would work. And so that it gave me such an appreciation of my own blessings in terms of education, but it also made me realize the importance of people like our young people, like my daughter. We just have to somehow instill that, basic overview knowledge in our kids, because it's going to help them. It's going to help them navigate the future. Without that, it's very easy to become hopeless when you see all the problems. But then when you know that there have been very dark days before and people got through them, that knowledge of history can really be a guiding light as you move forward into the future.
Yes. Yeah. And I agree with you. And I was just looking at this as you were talking, because I looked up your birthday, and I read this because I read the whole book, but just reminded me just 2 days before you, on September 15th.
Oh.
I mean, in 1928, Scottish physician and microbiologist Alexander Fleming discovers penicillin, right? I mean, and look at what that has done for people, penicillin. And I love the quote you used, Orson, I think it's Sweat Martin: "There is no medicine like hope, no incentive so great, and no tonic so powerful as expectation of something better tomorrow." What a powerful quote.
Yeah.
And it's so fitting right now with the pandemic, right? So many people are suffering and seeing that. And can you imagine life before antibiotics?
Yeah, I know. I mean, science has a place. It really does. It really has,
Right.
promoted the advancement of our species. So
I know. It really has. And then the one above it is I didn't know this, 1879 American birth control activist, writer, and nurse woman, Margaret Sanger, is born. And she was intricate in getting us birth control, right? So it's like, how important is all this stuff?
Exactly.
So it makes you think, because I can't imagine what the world looked like in 1879, and I'm sure a lot of it wasn't very hopeful, so there are challenges now. So yeah, I can see why this book maybe needed to wait until this time to come out, for
I
people.
think so. I mean, I really do. It's so interesting to me because I first pitched it in 1998, and I pitched it again in 2008 when Barack Obama had just been elected, because he ran on hope, and so I thought, people are going to want to read this book. Didn't get accepted, and it wasn't until, like the world had come to its knees it seemed to, spark interest. And,
that people are desperate for hope, and it's cool to see what happens for those of you listening on your birthday, like on the date of your birth. Like, I looked up my birthday, June 19th, and French physicist and philosopher, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, Blaise Pascal was born, and he wrote, "Love knows no limit to its endurance, no end to its trust, no fading of its hope. It can outlast anything. Love still stands when all else has fallen." That's adapted from Corinthians. It just was so beautiful, and I was like, oh my God, that's my birthday. I love that,
Awesome. Well, I do know my first book, Prayers for Healing, a dean of mine at my interfaith seminary told me that he uses it as a birthday book. He writes in the birthdays, the names of his friends and family members next to the entries for those days. They're on their birthdays. And I thought, that's a cool way to use it. Yeah.
Yes, it is. That is a cool way to use it. Oh my God. All right. Well, we're at our second break, so let's take it here. So if you guys stay tuned, and I will be back with Maggie Oman Shannon in just 2 minutes. Stay tuned.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
Coping 19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Welcome back. So Maggie, I want to talk about maybe you can offer us some ways to be hopeful right now. How are you cultivating hope? Is it through your writing? Like what can we do?
Great question. I have a list of things in the back of Have Hope that I bring forward for people to, just practices that they can do, like keep a hope journal, create a hope chest, or, by that I mean, that's an old-fashioned term, but, I mean like a basket or a box full of things that give them hope. Create biographies or collect biographies of your hope heroes. I also talk about creativity, and since that seems to be something that you and I share a passion for, I'll speak about that. That, I think, is such an important way to cultivate hope, because the very nature of creativity is that you are bringing something into existence that has never existed before. It's the ultimate manifestation, right? It's like nothing, you have made something out of nothing. And I think when people can tap into that, when people can really grasp the enormity and the immensity of that inner power that all of us have to create, then you can't help but feel hopeful, because, if all of us, put our attention on what it is that we could create, we'd never feel hopeless again. And I'll quickly tell this funny story I was telling recently. Because of the nature of the books that I write, which are spiritual in nature, I don't usually get heckled. But I actually got heckled at one book signing.
Really?
I did, and it was so funny. It was like, how can you heckle me about crafting calm? That was the book that I was talking about.
God.
But this guy, he would not let up on me, and he'd say, well, why did you write this? Why did you write this? And each time I gave him this answer that I thought was answering his question, but it just was not satisfying him. So he kept at it until finally, like from the depths of my soul, I said, I wrote this book because everybody, I want everybody to know that they are creative, because we are living in a world that needs our creativity, and we don't have the luxury of feeling that we're not creative. We all need to get to work, so it was like, it really tapped into this, deep emotion. So from that standpoint, I'm grateful for the experience, although it did make me laugh, like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Which book was it?
That was Crafting Calm. That was the very first crafting book. I just thought, that's pretty innocuous. Like, how can you heckle me about that? But that really is the intention, behind those books in particular, but also probably behind everything that I do, is just to encourage people to really embrace their creativity. And it's going to be different for each person. Not everybody has, the same, but we all have that ability, and the world desperately needs us. And when we, compare ourselves and think, well, I'm not as good a photographer as Melisa, or I'm not as good a writer as Maggie, or, whatever the comparison is, then we really block, ourselves from being able to offer our light. And so you can just tell, that's my soapbox. I just really want to encourage people to explore the, different ways they are creative, because the world really does need each of us to be creative, and that's how we can stay hopeful.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And you don't have to go anywhere to be creative. You can be creative in your own little space if you feel unsafe right now in the world. You know,
Absolutely.
you don't have to venture out. You don't have to, even if you're a photographer. Like I had to come up with a way to, once the pandemic hit, a different way to photograph the postcards, because a lot of times I would take them out with me and I would photograph them in nature. I would take them somewhere. I would throw them in my bag. I would grab some and try to come up with a way to shoot them. But since the COVID came, I decided, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do it at home. And I've actually, they've gotten so much better because now I find the things that I collect. I collect a lot of arts and crafts stuff, and I find things around my environment that I add to the image, and I set it up. Like almost like a studio. I set up a whole thing and it's become a whole ritual. I do it every Friday. It's my Friday afternoon thing. It's a whole ritual for me now. I love setting the space. I love it. And it takes me out of the issues and the tragedies and the pains of the world. And I feel hopeful in that moment because I'm creating.
Right. Right. And also it's a way of creating beauty. And I think beauty
Mm-hmm.
also is inherently hopeful. There's an incredible poem that's called Let Us Praise the Mutilated World. And so I really recommend that everybody Google that.
I never even heard of it, so I will. Say it again. Say it again.
Let Us Praise the Mutilated World. And I can't remember the first name. It's a Polish poet. I think his last name is Jagodziewski. But anyway, it'll come up with the title. But the idea, it's this juxtaposition of just the horrible things in the world and the beautiful things in the world. There is always beauty, and it ends on a beautiful, hopeful note. And that's what we have to, I really think that's sort of the spiritual practice of the 21st century, is that we need to be able to hold it all. We need to not put our heads in the sand. We need to know what's going on around the world, but we also have to train ourselves to always dig for the beauty, always excavate for the beauty because it's there.
Yeah. Do you have a daily practice to stay hopeful?
Again, I'm kind of intrigued by the question because there's probably a lot of different things that I do that might qualify. I do keep little altars all around me. I do keep collections of quotations. That's why my have hope folder had been, traveling with me for 20 plus years. I do try to read things that will keep me hopeful. And honestly, this is going to make you laugh, but it's a very, very helpful practice for me. Baby animals, looking at baby animal videos.
Me too. Me too. It's funny. Well, that's what my Facebook group, Postcards of Love, was created for that. It was created for, and it has all of those things in it. I can't get into it right now. I could still post on it, though, through others' accounts. But yeah, and it was for that, to keep hope, to look for the beauty, to look for the funny, to give me joy during the day. And a lot of it is animal videos.
Because it raises the vibration, right? It's like they're so sweet and cute, and so you can't help but feel better.
Yes, that's true. And I collect quotes like you do. I do it with through images with quotes on my phone. So if I see one, I'll screenshot it and I save them. So that's how I do it. Yeah. I think I read you put them all over, or you had them all over growing up, all over your room. As a kid, you had quotes. Yeah.
I did. And then, of course, another very obvious way to stay hopeful is to help, other people. And this came to me really powerfully about 12, 15 years ago. And this is when the war in Afghanistan had just started or was pretty new. And I remember reading a very upsetting story about, a teacher who was trying to help the Afghani girls being killed. And I was so upset, and I remember reading this news story, and it's like, well, what can I do? And then I went on to it was either Global Giving or it was one of the sort of GoFundMe pages, and I could give directly to a school for Afghan girls, and that helped a lot. It was like there are ways. We think we can't help it. We really can, even if it's just to, give money, just to keep that hope alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. There's always something we can do, even if it's just talking to a friend who's in need and giving them some encouragement. There's always something, and it does make you feel better when you give service to others. I mean, I think that's what you do with your books. That's what I do with my book and my art. That's the way I can give. That's my gift. That you write the books like this. This is your gift to the world. And if we all have it somewhere in some way, and it's just a matter of doing it. And I'm a hopeful person in general. So I think I have hope that the world is moving in the right direction, even though it doesn't always feel that way, Right. And a lot of people don't. I try to stay away from the pessimists. So why do you think we're having these troubling times right now? What's your intuition telling you about it?
I mean, there are all kinds of theories out there, that it's just kind of the clearing out before we can really remake, that we're looking at the extremes to just see kind of the rot that's there before we can really move forward. I don't pretend to know why, but I do feel that it's calling all of us to really step up, along the lines of what I was talking about before, that we don't have the luxury to just sit back and say, somebody will figure it out. I mean, it's like we are the ones that we've been waiting for, right?
Right.
And you had asked me earlier what my favorite quote was, and I didn't really give you one, but it did come to me. My very, very favorite quote was from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman from New York, and she uses hope as a verb. She said, "You have to be hope." It's not about having hope, although that's important too, but it's to literally be hope. And if we all were to commit to being hope, imagine the world we could live in.
That would be pretty wonderful. Yeah. I love her. I love that quote. I read that. No, it's like, that's good. That's good. And she's right. We all have to be hope. And I think my feeling is a lot like yours. I feel like everything that's in the shadows, that's been in the shadows, is coming to light. Right. And it's shaking the world up. And that's the only way we can transform it. Yeah. That's the only way. We have to see it. We have to look at it to shift it and raise the frequency of the planet. And we do that by each of us individually raising our own frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. Doesn't seem like there's too much hidden anymore, does it?
No, I don't think so.
All out there for us to see.
I know. I think you're right about that. Oh my God. Well, is there anything, because we only have a few more minutes, is there anything that you really want to share, a story you really want to tell? I want to give you some time to be able to share that before we wrap up.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, just for having me on and for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things that I love so much. I just would say, there's always something that we can do. Also, I'll just sort of underscore that idea, and that the best way to stay hopeful is to to take action that gives you hope, even if it's something as simple as I just described, giving money, to remember that you are inherently creative and the world needs your gifts, and to sort for the positive. You know, it's so easy. All you have to do is read the news, and you know, it's so easy to just feel really overwhelmed, but there's always beauty too. So that idea of seeking what's good, true, and beautiful, that will always steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you. I pretty much stopped watching mainstream news because I always get what I need to get, you know. It's not like I don't know what's going on, but because of that, I don't click on those stories. I stopped that a long time ago. And yeah, if there's things called Good News Network that you can join that gives you all the good news that's going on in the world, which I love. So that's always nice too, to feel hopeful. Well, it's been such a joy having you and talking to you, especially right now, the way the world is, talking about hope. We need more of that. So I thank you so much for being with me today, Maggie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Melissa.
And the best way for people to find you is where? Your website?
My website, and thanks for spelling my name out. It is Maggie Oman Shannon, and Oman is OMAN. .com.
Yeah, and you can find out all about Maggie and her work, so please go there and check her out. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. Wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.